Grief is one of the most universal experiences we face. Yet, it's also one of the most isolating. Whether it's loss of a parent, partner, friend, or anyone we hold dear, the pain can feel overwhelming and at times completely consuming. What you might not realize is that grief affects more than just our emotions. It has an impact on our brain and body too. In this video, I want to explore how grief impacts us, especially in the way it can alter our brain. I'm Professor Shania Rathod, a psychiatrist in the United Kingdom. I post educational videos weekly on my YouTube channel. So please subscribe to my channel and you won't miss out on the next one. Losing someone you love is an enormous emotional blow, and it's completely normal to feel like you are just going through the motions for a while. You might find yourself struggling with basic things like remembering details, concentrating, or even making decisions. Everyday tasks might seem harder than they've ever been and could catch you feeling forgetful or like you're spaced out. It's as if your brain is in fog, processing so much grief and emotion that it can barely function normally. Speaking or expressing yourself can feel like an impossible task too. You might even notice that you are struggling to feel anything other than sadness and longing. These feelings tend to be most intense in the first 6 months following a loss, but everyone grieves at their own pace. Some people feel like their world is in a permanent state of fog, and it's completely normal for your grieving process to be unique. For others, the fog starts to lift gradually with clearer thoughts and sharper memories returning with time. However, if the grief goes on for too long without any relief, it can become something more. There's a condition called prolonged grief disorder, which is a disturbance in which, following the death of a partner, parent, child, or other person close to the bereaved, there is persistent and pervasive grief response, which is characterized by longing for the deceased or persistent preoccupation with the deceased, accompanied by intense emotional pain like sadness, guilt, anger, denial, blame, difficulty accepting the death, feeling one has lost a part of oneself, and inability to experience positive mood, emotional numbness, difficulty in engaging with social or other activities. In order to have this condition, the grief response has to persist for an atypically long period of time following the loss, i.e., more than 6 months at minimum, and clearly exceeds expected social, cultural, or religious norms for that individual's culture and context. Grief reactions that have persisted for longer periods that are within a normative period of grieving given the person's cultural and religious context are viewed as normal bereavement responses and are not assigned this diagnosis. The disturbance causes significant impairment in personal, family, social, educational, occupational, and other important areas of functioning. The longer that intense symptoms last, the greater the chance of developing longer-term changes in your brain and body. What's happening in the brain during this prolonged grief is important. You see, grief is a form of emotional trauma, and the brain reacts to it in much the same way it handles stress. When you grieve, your brain enters a kind of survival mode. Stress hormones flood your system, and the emotional centers of your brain take over. This is when you might notice a decrease in your ability to think clearly or make decisions. The part of your brain responsible for rational thought, the prefrontal cortex or the front of the brain, becomes less active, while areas involved in emotion and fear, known as the limbic system, become more dominant. This shift can cause your brain to rewire itself, forming new pathways based on the emotional responses rather than logic or reason. For example, reminders of your loved one, maybe their favorite TV show, an old shirt, or a song you both loved, can trigger the stress response all over again. These constant emotional triggers can reinforce the new neural pathways, making it harder for your brain to regain its balance. Over time, grief can affect various aspects of cognitive functioning. You might notice difficulty with memory or concentration on tasks, trouble with decision making or problem solving, slower processing speed, or feeling foggy. You might struggle to express yourself or find the right words. You might have a decreased ability to focus on details, especially activities that require coordination or depth perception. But the good news is that most of these effects are temporary. Our brains are incredibly resilient. Over time, with proper care and support, the brain can begin to heal and find its balance again. It is normal for it to take a little while, but things do improve. So, if you're feeling like grief is becoming too much to handle on your own, don't hesitate to seek help. Talking to a therapist or counselor can make a huge difference. A grief counselor can help you process the grief in a healthy way, offering coping tools that can prevent the feelings from spiraling into depression or other long term issues. Some strategies that might help you along the way: therapy is a great way to reframe and manage your emotions. Secondly, support groups, being around others who are going through a similar loss, can remind you that you're not alone. Thirdly, journaling, writing down your feelings and thoughts, can be a safe outlet for expression. Number four, meditation, calming your mind and practicing mindfulness can help you to stay grounded. Number five, exercise and yoga. Moving your body can help release emotional tension and promote healing. Number six, creative activities like drawing, knitting, or even writing creatively can provide an emotional outlet and bring moments of peace. The journey through grief is deeply personal. There is no right way to grieve and there is no fixed timeline. But know that just like physical wounds, emotional pain can heal with time and the right support. While grief may change the way you see the world and make everyday tasks more difficult, those changes don't have to last forever. If you're worrying that moving forward from grief means you have to forget your loved one, that is completely wrong. How can you forget someone you loved? Actually, you are grieving because you love them. And why should you forget them? But as the grief reduces, their memories bring a smile to your face and you can celebrate their lives. If you are in the middle of grieving right now, remember, it's okay to feel like your world has been turned upside down. Your brain is doing its best to navigate this intense experience, and in time, you will find a new sense of balance. Healing doesn't happen in a straight line, but it does happen. You're not alone in this, and it is okay to ask for help when you need it.